Nestled in the Scottish Highlands lies Loch Bracken, a picturesque yet remote lake surrounded by dense forests and towering mountains. Tourists visit for its beauty, but locals tell a different story. They speak of the Watcher, a silent presence that observes anyone who dares linger near the lake after sundown. Our story begins with David and Sophie, a couple in their early 30s who rented a secluded cabin by the lake for a peaceful getaway. David, a photographer, was eager to capture the untouched beauty of the Highlands, while Sophie, an amateur historian, was curious about the local legends. But what started as a romantic escape soon turned into a nightmare. On their second night, David set up his camera by the lake to photograph the stars. Sophie stayed inside reading about Loch Bracken's history. She found an old tale about villagers who vanished without a trace centuries ago, leaving behind a single warning scratched into the stone of the church, "Do not look at it." Outside, David felt uneasy, as if someone was watching him. He chalked it up to the isolation, but when he checked his camera, he froze. In the frame was a faint figure standing at the tree line, a tall, shadowy silhouette with no discernible features. He looked up, but nothing was there. David rushed back to the cabin, telling Sophie about the figure. She laughed it off, saying it was probably a trick of the light, but David couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. Over the next few days, strange things began happening. At night, they heard faint footsteps outside the cabin, though no one was ever there. The power flickered sporadically, and David's camera malfunctioned, refusing to turn on. Sophie started having vivid nightmares of a shadowy figure standing at the foot of their bed, its head tilting unnaturally as it watched her. She woke up sweating and breathless, convinced it wasn't just a dream. One evening, David decided to investigate, determined to prove to himself there was nothing to fear. Armed with a flashlight and his backup camera, he ventured into the woods. Sophie begged him not to go, but he brushed off her concerns, calling them silly fears. David didn't return for hours. Sophie, terrified, grabbed a lantern and went after him. She followed his footprints to the edge of the lake, where she found his camera lying on the ground. The lens was cracked, and the last photo taken chilled her to the core. David's horrified face, and behind him, the same shadowy figure towering over him. Sophie screamed his name, but the forest responded with eerie silence. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and she felt a presence behind her. Slowly turning around, she came face to face with the Watcher. It was tall, featureless, and impossibly dark, its shape blending with the shadows. It didn't move, but she felt it. Gaze pierced through her. Her body froze as a voice whispered in her mind, "You looked." Fighting the overwhelming fear, Sophie ran blindly through the woods, her lantern flickering. The Watcher didn't chase her, but she could feel its presence at every turn, always watching. She stumbled into the cabin, locking the door behind her. In the safety of the dim light, she thought she was safe, but when she turned to the window, it was there. Its shadowy form pressed against the glass, motionless but suffocatingly close. Grabbing her phone, Sophie called the police, who arrived hours later. They found her hysterical but unharmed. Of David there was no sign. The only clue was his camera and the final haunting photo. Sophie never returned to Loch Bracken. She moved back to the city, but she was never the same. For months she researched the Watcher and found similar stories of people disappearing near the lake, all linked by vague, terrifying descriptions of a silent figure. Years later, while scrolling through online forums, she came across a thread about unexplained disappearances. Someone had posted a blurry photo of Loch Bracken taken from a drone. In the corner of the image, standing at the tree line, was the same shadowy figure. Sophie stared at it, her heart pounding. She could feel it watching her through the screen. The legend of the Watcher wasn't just a story, it was real. And it never forgot those who saw it. See this type's interesting horror story video, please like and subscribe this channel.